Yeah, he's still after me. He just gave me a necklace. I don't know, I think it's real diamonds. Yeah, he thinks he can impress me by giving me expensive gifts. It's nice, though. You want it?
Old song was released 30 years ago, very early in Madonna's career, but it's a very catchy tune. I don't know if it's kind of still going through your head at the moment. It was one of the songs that propelled Madonna into the spotlight and established her as a cultural icon in the music industry. So that was one of the songs that made her famous. And even though it's a really old song, I think it's a song that still resonates with many people because it reflects so much of what our world is like. See, the song talks about how we live in a material world where money and possessions, that's the major concern for many people, isn't it? Because we live in a material world. Now, we use money not just to buy things and sell things, but in our world we also use money to measure our success, to measure our self-worth. And I think that's one of the reasons why people don't like talking about their salaries, how much they earn. They don't like to reveal that. Because once people know how much you earn, they could start judging you. They can start measuring you. So if you have a higher salary, then you're more successful. If you have a lower salary, you're less successful. If you earn more money, you're more important. If you earn less money, you're less important. And that's how our world works. That's how we judge people. And whether we like it or not, we can't get away from the fact that we live in a material world, that money is important in our world. And yet at the same time, we have this kind of love-hate relationship with money. So we know that, I think at least theoretically, we know that money is not the most important thing. Right? I don't know if anyone picked up the kind of irony in the video. Did you notice that while Madonna with her pink dress on and all the guys around her, she was singing about how she goes to the guys who's got money, she goes to the guys who are rich. But behind the scenes, when she's off stage in her dressing room, she's on the phone, she's talking about how she doesn't want the diamond necklace. She doesn't want guys who are rich. She doesn't actually care about that sort of stuff. And you see at the end of the video, I don't know if you noticed, she falls for the guy who pretends to be poor. Anyway, I mean, he looks like he's got money, but he pretends to be poor. He buys his old car off this old man. He comes with a cheap bunch of flowers, and she falls for him because what she cares about is not how much the guy has, how much money she has, but she actually cares about finding real love. And we know that's kind of, at least in theory, we know that's how life is supposed to work. We're supposed to, there are things that are more important than money, and yet at the same time we know money is very important. So we have this love-hate relationship. So how do we balance these things? How do we as Christians view money in a material world? Well, in the next few weeks, we're going to look at what the Bible has to say about money, and it's a very, very big topic. Actually, there are so many passages that we could spend weeks and weeks and weeks going through this topic, but we're going to spend 3 weeks on this. Now, when I mention money, though, I wonder what goes through your head. Some people will think, oh, I know what you're going to talk about. You just want me to give more money to the church, don't you? All right? Let me say up front, that is not the reason why we're doing this topic, why we're looking at this topic. Now, we will be looking at giving in a few weeks' time, but it's not because we need money for the building project. Okay, it's not because I want to raise. Right? If the offering goes up double next week, I don't get an extra penny in my salary. Okay, so it's not because of that. It's not because we're hungry for money. It's not because we're greedy, but it's because of something Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6. That comes up on the screen. Matthew chapter 6. This is what Jesus says. He says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal." And here's the important. He says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So this is why money is important. Jesus says, where you spend your money reveals where your heart is at. Okay? It shows what is important to you. And I hope that by looking at this topic, it will expose perhaps some of the idols that are in your lives, things that are competing with you for God's affections. And so I hope that as we look at it, it will reveal them and it'll help us to get rid of them. So let's have a look at this topic of money. Firstly, I want to ask 3 questions today. Firstly, is money a good or bad thing? Okay, on the one hand, some people kind of say, as Christians, if you're faithful to God, God's going to bless you, He'll give you riches, He'll look after you, and so if you're a good Christian, you'll be rich. On the other hand, some Christians would say, well, money is evil, money is bad, and so if you want to be holy, if you want to be really holy, then you give away all your wealth, you give away your riches, and you go and dedicate your life, dedicate your life to God, and you live a simple life, like the monks or the nuns. You live a simple life in poverty. Now, I think the Bible actually has a bit finer balance in those two things. It's neither extreme, and I think the Bible has something in the middle to say. Have a look in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9 says, "People who want to get rich fall into temptation and are trapped and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." And you notice what the passage says there? What I've highlighted on the screen there? 3 times it says that it's not actually money that's the problem. Did you notice that? It's actually greed. It's the desire to get rich. It's the love of money. But that is the problem. Well, it's not money, but it's the desire to have money to get rich. And people will some people will do anything to get rich. Now, have you ever wondered how much money do people need to be happy? Now, how much money would you need to be happy? $50,000 a year? $100,000 a year? How much would you want to earn to be happy? If you had $1 million, would you be happy? Well, according to some research, it depends. The answer depends. He says once people have enough to cover basic needs, right? Once you've got your food and clothing and so on, right? You've got your basic needs covered. What makes people happy? It depends on what their family and friends are earning. So, for example, if you're earning $50,000 a year and your friend earns $30,000 a year, well, then you'd be quite happy because in comparison to your friend, you're earning more than he does, and so you're happy. But if you're earning $50,000 a year and your friend earns $60,000 a year, all of a sudden you're now unhappy, you're dissatisfied. Right? It's the same amount of money that you earn, but compared to somebody else, because it's less, now you're unhappy. And people have done lots of kind of research on this sort of stuff. And one person has said this. He says, men do not desire to be rich, but only to be richer than other men. And so it's like we're in a competition. Right? And the winner is the person who earns the most money. Now, of course, the truth is, if you have food in the fridge, if you have clothes on your back, if you have a roof over your head and a place to sleep, you're richer than 75% of the people in the world. Right? That's without any income. That's just if you have a roof over your head, if you have food to eat, you have places to sleep, you are richer than 75% of the people in the world. And if you have a university degree, or if you plan to get a university degree, on average in Australia, your first job at a university, you'll earn about $50,000 a year on average. With that amount, with that income, you are in the top 1% of the richest people in the world. The top 1%. Can you believe that? Even with $50,000, you are the top 1% richest people in the world. And yet we're not satisfied. We're not happy because we always feel like it's not enough. We want more. And it's because we live in a world that says that greed is good. Greed is good. Greed stimulates the economy. It provides jobs. It creates ambition. It makes people work hard. And greed makes all sorts of promises to us. Greed says that if you have more money, you will be happy. You have security. And you have a good life. But the Bible tells us that these promises, they are lies. It's a trap. And the truth is that the love of money has caused many people to be at peace with many griefs. So then secondly, I want to unpack that a bit. What makes greed bad? Why is greed a bad thing? Well, let me tell you 3 reasons why. Firstly, greed, it promises to make us happy, but it doesn't. It doesn't make us happy. If you go to the next slide, there's a picture of a guy called Karl Rabida. Karl is an Austrian businessman. And a couple of years ago, in 2010, he gave away, he sold his mansion, which is pictured there. He sold his holiday house. He sold all his expensive furniture. He sold all his toys and everything. Everything he sold, worth about $5 million. And the reason he did this, he sold all this stuff and he gave the money away actually. He didn't just sell it for himself to buy something new. But he gave $5 million of stuff away. Because this is what he said. He said, riches made him unhappy. He said, for the longest time I believed that more wealth and luxury automatically meant more happiness. I come from a very poor family where the rules were to work more, to achieve more material things. And I applied this for many years. Right? So he grew up thinking that, like many of us, that we worked to earn money, and we have more money, we'll have a happy life. But he says the tipping point came, and during a 3-week holiday with his wife in Hawaii, and he says it was the biggest shock in my life when I realized how horrible, soulless, and without feeling the 5-star lifestyle is. In those 3 weeks, we spent all the money you could possibly imagine. But in all that time, we had the feeling we hadn't met a single real person. That we were all just actors. The staff played the role of being friendly, and the guests played the role of being important. And nobody was real. And he said, it's all fake. It's all fake. We're just actors, pretending to be important, and the waiters who serve you, they're just pretending to be nice to you. It's all fake. We all have this veneer of niceness. But underneath, deep down, he says, he's empty. We're all empty. And deep down, we know this to be true, don't we? We know that money is not what life is all about. We know that money can buy you a house, but it can't buy you a home. Money can buy you nice food, but not an appetite. Money can buy you books, but not an education. Money can buy you a bed, but not a good night's sleep. Money can buy you medicine, but not your health. money can buy you many expensive toys, but not happiness. See, and so money doesn't actually make us happy. That's the first problem with greed. The second problem with greed is that greed doesn't give us any security. Now we think if we save up our money, if we put our money in the bank, if we invest it, then our future will be safe, will be secure. So if something goes wrong, we'll be okay. But look what the Bible says in Ecclesiastes chapter 5. It says, "The sleep of a labourer is sweet, whether he eats little or much. But the abundance of a rich man permits him no sleep." So why does a rich man, why is he not able to sleep? See, a rich man is worried. He can't sleep because he's worried. He's worried about thieves. He's worried about the stock market. He's worried about interest rates. He's worried about competitors. He's worried about global financial crisis. And he's worried about his life. In Proverbs 13 it says, "A rich man's riches may ransom his life, but a poor man has no threat." So a rich man has to worry about his own life, to be threatened, someone might kidnap him or threaten him. Now, there's nothing wrong with having money in the bank. There's nothing wrong with saving and being wise with your financial planning. But if you think that by doing these things you can find safety and security, if you think by doing these things you will have a sure and secure future, well, history has shown us time and time and time again, through the global financial crisis, through stock market crashes, through a global recession, many times throughout history, no matter how much you've got, no matter how much you've got in the bank, no matter how much you've saved, it can change just like that. You can lose it all in an instant. And so money and greed doesn't make us happy, and it doesn't give us security. And the third problem with greed is that money doesn't make us better people. Now, if you think about it, who is more likely to do bad things, rich people or poor people? You normally think it'd be poor people who are likely to do bad things, right, because they don't have money, they have to steal or something like that. The University of California did this study. They spent a couple of days at a pedestrian crossing, where cars are meant to stop, right? And they just watched the cars to see which cars would stop, which cars would just, keep going and come close to hitting someone. And they said 90% of the drivers come to the pedestrian crossing and they would stop, except for drivers who drive luxury cars, or people who drive in a Mercedes-Benz, people who drive BMWs, things like that. Those drivers, those cars, were 3 or 4 times more likely to just run through the pedestrian crossing and ignore whoever was trying to cross. Right? And they did some other experiments. They got a bunch of volunteers, one by one, to come into a room and say, we're going to do this study or some survey. Can you just wait here for a bit? Now on the table there's a bowl of candy. And they said the candy is there for another study we're going to do with some children later on. So the candy's for the kids. But if you really want, you can have some, okay? But it's for the kids. And so they go away, they leave them there in the room for a few minutes, and then they observe them through cameras. And now, again, the wealthy people, the people who had money, they were twice as likely to take the candy compared to the poor people. Now, they didn't do anything wrong. They did say they could take it. But rich people were more likely to take advantage of this free candy that was for children than poor people were. And they did another experiment. They gave them a couple of dice, and they had to roll the dice, and certain combinations, if they recorded the dice rolls, if they got certain combinations, they would be eligible to win a $50 cash prize. Okay? So you just roll dice, and whatever happens, right? Whatever the dice comes up, and you just record it down. And if you're lucky, you get the money. If you don't, you don't. And those people, the volunteers who are doing this test, those who earn $150,000 a year to $200,000 a year, so a lot of money, right? The people who earn that kind of money, they were 4 times as likely to cheat in recording dice rolls. Right? They were more likely to cheat and record something that would give them this cash prize compared to someone at the bottom of the ladder earning $15,000 a year. Right? $150,000 versus $15,000, but they were 4 times more likely to cheat. Right? And they repeated this study with lots of people, lots of various kinds of experiments, right? And they just, time and time again, they showed that wealthier people were more likely to lie, to cheat, to steal from work, and just generally show unethical behavior. And so, what does it tell us? See, our world says that greed is good. Having money is good. But the reality is quite different. See, rather than being the solution to our problems, money and greed creates more problems. Rather than making us happy and secure, satisfied, moral, righteous people, it actually makes us unhappy, insecure, dissatisfied, and immoral people. So if that's the case then, well, how should we view money? Now, as I've said, money is not the problem, right? It's greed that's the problem. Money is not a bad thing. But if that's the case, how do we view money then as Christians? Well, firstly, the Bible tells us that money comes from God. Now, if you turn back to the passage in Deuteronomy that Richard read earlier, we're going to look at this for a little while. And the context here in Deuteronomy is that the people of Israel, they've been living in the desert for 40 years. They've been wandering around, living in the desert, and now God is about to take them into the promised land, into the land of Canaan. Finally, after 40 years of living in the desert, they're going to settle down, and instead of living in a desert where, there's nothing, they're going to live in a beautiful place with trees and flowers and rivers and fruits and, all sorts of good things. But before they go into this land, before they take possession of it, God here in Deuteronomy chapter 8 reminds them what they should have learned over these last 40 years. Okay, this is what God says to them. Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 2. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the desert these 40 years to humble you and to test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. He humbled you, causing you to hunger and then feeding you with manna, which neither you nor your fathers had known, to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. See, God reminds them that the only reason they survived 40 years in the desert was because God was there looking after them. God gave them bread from heaven to eat in order to teach them that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. And that we are to trust him. He is the one that provides for them. It was all God's work. They had to rely completely and totally on him. And it was vitally important that they understand this and they remember this as they enter into this new land. Well, we go down to verse 12, because if they don't remember, this is what's going to happen. Verse 12, otherwise, when you eat and are satisfied, when you build fine houses and settle down, and when your herds and flocks grow large, and your silver and gold increase, and all you have is multiplied, then your heart will become proud, and you will forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. So God tells them, your future is going to be really good. You've got a fantastic future waiting for you. You're going to be satisfied. You're going to have nice houses. You're going to have large flocks. You're going to have lots of money. And when things go well, when you're successful, when you're wealthy, the danger is that you will become proud and that you will forget God. They will forget that it was God who sustained them for 40 years. They will forget that it was God who led them to this land. They will forget that it was God who gave them this place. And instead of remembering God, verse 17, you may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms his covenant, which he swore to your forefathers, as it is today. Have you heard people say something like that? Say similar things? No, I worked hard. I studied hard for this. I put in extra effort. I put in lots of overtime. I was in the office doing overtime when everyone else had left. I sacrificed so many things to get to where I am today. My power and my strength have produced this wealth for me. But God says no. No, it's not by your power or by the strength of your hands. God says, I'm the one who gives you the ability to produce wealth. I'm the one who gave you your intellect, your strength, your opportunities. You didn't work for it. It was given to you. Your wealth is given to you. Now everyone, I hope, knows the game Monopoly. It's a classic game that's been around for a long, long time. In case you don't know it, I mean, it's a fairly basic kind of game. You roll 2 dice, you go around the board, you get to buy properties, you charge people rent, you earn money, and by the end of the game, basically, the one who owns everything, who has a monopoly on everything, wins. Now, the same university I mentioned before, University of California, part of their studies, they played a rigged game of Monopoly. They got 2 people. One person played Monopoly as per normal, so they had 2 dice. They started with $2,000 and so on. Another person got this disadvantage in the game Monopoly. So instead of having $200 when they pass go, they only get $100. Instead of starting with $2,000, they start with $1,000. Instead of having 2 dice to roll, they only get 1 dice. And do you know what happens when you only have 1 die? You can't roll doubles. And because Monopoly, when you roll doubles, you get a second turn. Right? So having only 1 die means you cannot roll doubles. You have no way of getting a second turn. And even the little game pieces they use, the rich person, the person who started with more money, got the nice shiny car. And the person with the less money got the dirty old boot. Right? And so everything about the game was rigged, and it was set up that way, and they played the game and played up the game. And of course, as you'd expect, the person with more money, with two dice, they whip them, right? They win the game easily, and the person with only 1 die and less money, they got thrashed, okay? That's expected. But then after the game was over, they interviewed the rich guy. Okay, they asked him, do you feel that you deserve to win the game? Right? Do you feel that you deserve to win the game? And the rich people, they say, yes, I feel like I deserve to win. They attribute success to themselves, to the decisions they made, to how they handled the money and so on. And you know, they kind of become desensitized to all the other factors that contributed to their success. They just think of themselves and their hard work and how they got there. And they even, not just in kind of the extra things they have, even as they play, their personality changes, they notice. Right? The rich person starts to talk, in real life they may not be a rich person, but in the game they're rich. And they start talking like a rich person. Instead of saying, can you give me $100 for rent? It's like, give me $100 now. They say, act more bossy. They had a bowl of pretzels on the side, and they found the poor person doesn't really go for it. But the rich person feels like it's his, and he kind of happily digs into it. And even starts eating with his mouth full. Just in the personality, the behavior starts to become more arrogant, more boastful, and this is just a fake game of Monopoly, right? It's not even real life yet, and yet they're acting like what happens in real life. This is what the Bible says is the deceitfulness of wealth. So wealth can deceive you, even if it's just a game, even if it's with fake money. Wealth can deceive you into thinking that your hard work, the strength of your hands, have earned you your money. So the fact that you live and you study and you work in Australia and not in a third world country, or the fact that you have the intellect to learn and not, rather than have a mental disability, the fact that you live in a time and place that is peaceful and is not at war, so these and 1,001 other factors were completely out of your control. You had no say in any of that. It was all due to the actions and the purposes of God, who gives you all of these good things, including your money, including your success, including your wealth. This is why Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus says this, why do you worry about clothes? See how the lilies of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. And that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire. Will he not much more clothe you, O you little of faith? So Jesus reminds us that God provides for all his creation. He clothes the lilies and the grass of the field. He gives feathers for the birds. He gives scales to the fish. He provides a shell for the turtle. He provides whiskers for a cat. Right, from the biggest creature in creation to the smallest, God provides for each of them. He's saying God will provide for you as well. Everything that you have comes from God. God provides it. And so therefore, secondly, Jesus says we need to have faith. We need to trust God. Right? Jesus goes on to say, in the same chapter, he says, so do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the pagan runs after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So to worry is the opposite of trusting. So to worry is to take matters into your own hands. And Jesus said that, to worry, that is something that belongs to the pagan. That belongs to the non-Christian. They're the ones who have to run and chase after these things. They're the ones who have to work hard and look after themselves, because they have no one to rely on. They have no one that they can trust completely. But as Christians, we can trust God. He has all the resources in the universe at His bidding, and He can give us all that we need. And our focus, rather than on chasing the things of this world, rather than chasing money, our focus, Jesus says, is to be on the kingdom of God. The pagan seeks money, but we seek His kingdom and His righteousness. And then because we are free from worry, thirdly, Jesus tells us that it frees us then to use money to worship God and to serve others. Now, I don't know if some of you are familiar with the parable that Jesus tells about there was once a rich man, who went away on a journey, and before he went on this journey, he called his servants in and he gave them some money. To one, he gave 5 talents, which is a unit of money. He gave 5 talents to one. To another person, he gave 2 talents. And to one person, he gave 1 talent. And he told his servants to go and use that money wisely. And so the master goes away for a long time. And when he eventually comes back, he calls his servants in to see what they did with the money. And in the parable, the one who got 5 talents came back and he earned 5 more. The one with 2 talents came back and he earned 2 more. But then the last servant who had only 1 talent, well, this is what happened. In Matthew chapter 25, this is what happens. Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. Now, in the coming weeks, we're going to look at this parable a little bit more, but for the moment, you can see what's going on here, can't you? The man was afraid. He was worried. And so he just hoarded the money. He just kept it and he buried it and he did nothing with it. And that's what you do when you're afraid, isn't it? You think about it, why do we put money in the bank? It's because we're afraid of the future. So we want to put money away, we want to save it up in case something happens. But when we trust God, when we trust that God will provide for us, we don't have to worry, we don't have to be fearful, we don't have to hoard money for ourselves. Now again, I'm not saying that we should spend every last cent. I'm not saying putting money in the bank is wrong. There is a place for wise financial planning, but we're not talking about that today particularly. But see, God didn't give us money in order for us to hoard it for ourselves. He didn't give us money so we can bury it in the ground. God gives us money so that we can use it to seek His kingdom and His righteousness. That's what the money is there for. And some of that, as part of seeking His kingdom, might be to use it on yourself. Some of that might be to use it on your family. Some of that might be to use it on church. Some of that might be to use it on other people. Right? And we're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks' time. But it's not for us to hoard and keep and gather up and store for ourselves. And if that's true, that kind of changes the way we think about work as well. See, usually we think about the reason we go to work is in order to earn money, isn't it? But see, when we work to worship God and to serve people, then money is not the priority. Of course, you need money to survive, but see, for example, for a doctor to go and heal someone, he's not doing it primarily for the money. He's doing it so that he can serve this person, he can help this person get better again. A plumber goes to work so that people can have working taps and running toilets. A chef goes to work so that people can eat good food. It's not primarily about the money, it's about the service that you give, the product that you provide for people. Money is not the goal. Money is just a byproduct. Money is the means to an end. But you go to work because you want to serve people, because you want to serve God. See, if you work only for the money, if you work primarily for the money, you will hate the work. You know why? Because work is a pain. Work, as we saw in previous weeks, work is cursed. No matter what job you have, no work is perfect. There's going to be things about your work that you will hate, that will frustrate you. And no matter how much they pay you, it won't take that frustration away. You're still going to go to work and you're going to hate your job. But if you work for the sake of helping people, if you work for the sake of serving God, then you will enjoy your work no matter how much or how little they pay you. You will get the satisfaction as a doctor of helping someone. You'll get the satisfaction as a plumber of helping people with running water. You'll get the satisfaction as a chef that people can enjoy good food. And whatever you get paid, that's secondary. Because people are served through what you do. So let me sum up quickly what we've looked at this morning. We asked three questions today. We asked firstly, is money good or bad? And we saw that the answer was neither. Money is not good or bad, but the problem is with greed. Secondly, we asked, what is wrong with greed then? And we saw that greed deceives us. Greed promises to make us happy and secure and satisfied and moral people, but instead greed makes us unhappy, insecure, dissatisfied, and immoral people. And then thirdly, we asked, how then should we view money? And we saw that money comes from God, so that we are to trust God to give us money, to provide for us, and to use that money to worship Him and to serve others. So money is neither a good or bad thing, but money is a bit like an X-ray machine. Money reveals what is going on inside of you. It reveals what is going on in your heart. And if money goes unchecked, even though it's not a bad thing, but if money goes unchecked, it can become a bad thing. It can become something that is dangerous. Jesus said this in Matthew chapter 13. He's telling a parable about a farmer who sows his seed out into the field, and the seed falls in different soil. And he says in Matthew 13, the one who received the field that fell among the thorns is the man who hears the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke it, making it unfruitful. In the parable, Jesus talks about this seed that falls among soil where there are thorns and thistles. And he said, this seed that falls in the soil is the word of God. And he says, the soil is you, as a listener, the one who hears the word. Now today, you have heard the word of God, and that seed has been planted in your heart. Now if money and wealth and greed is not kept in check, that seed will grow, but it will be choked by the thorns in your life. It will be choked by the deceitfulness of wealth. Right? Wealth promises us freedom, but it actually enslaves us. Greed promises life, but it actually gives death. It chokes us. And Jesus, you need to keep your money and your greed in check. Because that's the choice that you're going to face today. It's either your money or your life. You either put greed to death, or greed will choke you to death. Right? It's either your money or your life. And Paul puts it like this in Colossians chapter 3. He says, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. See, greed is a god. It's a false god. It's a god that fails. And we need to recognize greed for what it is, that it is a false god. And instead to seek happiness and security in Christ, not in material things, not in a material world. John Wesley once said this. He said, when I have money, I get rid of it quickly, lest it finds a way into my heart. When I have money, I get rid of it quickly, lest it finds a way into my heart. He is a man who knows the danger of money. Right? Again, not saying that money is bad, but he knows that it is dangerous if it is not kept in check. Let me ask you, has money and greed found its way into your heart? Has it taken a hold of your life? Has it started choking you? Are you enslaved to money? Well, we're going to keep on looking at this topic over the next couple of weeks, and there's a lot of things that I haven't said yet, a lot of things that hasn't been unpacked. But see, if money is not a bad thing, as we've looked at today, then how should we treat money? How should we use it? How should we handle it? That's what we're going to be looking at in the next 2 weeks. So please make sure you come back for that. And if you have any questions, like I said, because there's so many things that I could say that I can't fit all in, if you have particular questions, come and let me know. Come and speak to me. I'll see if it might be mentioned next week, or I might answer it separately with you. But it is a really important topic that we need to think about. It's not something that we can take for granted, but it is something that is very serious and very deceitful. So please come back next week and keep on thinking about this topic.